We're not going to read the passage because I'm actually just going to tell it to you. I wonder if you know where it is. Coming up. Where would it be? Well, in fact, there are 66 chapters written on this particular individual. He has the most chapters in the Old Testament written about him. He is David. David in the Old Testament. There he is. He has the most chapters written about him as any human in the Old Testament. There he is. And we're going to be looking at just a couple of chapters today. And we're starting sort of in chapter 16 and verse 17. But I'll just give you a little bit of context before that. Israel wanted a king. They moaned and complained, and eventually God gave them one. God gave them Saul. Saul wasn't the best of kings. He let them down many times. Even Saul himself, you could read a few chapters later, actually admitted it himself. I have played the fool and erred exceedingly. He admitted it himself. It was a bit too late. But God has said to Samuel, Samuel is the last of the judges that they've got. You could say now the first prophet too. I have rejected Saul. Now, what I don't want you to think here for one moment that God is not without a plan. He does. It's not as if God's saying, oh no, Saul's let me down again. What am I going to do this time? God has a plan. And so he says to Samuel, stop mourning. Now I give it to Samuel. I think he really wanted King Saul for it to work, but it hadn't. And so Saul is in mourning. And God says to Saul, stop mourning. I have a plan. I want you to go to the house in Bethlehem. Now that might ring some alarm bells, mightn't it? Because coming up near this time of the year, we think about Bethlehem a lot more than we would any other time of the year normally, don't we? And so he says to Samuel, God that is, go to the house of Jesse. There is one of his sons who I have chosen to be the next king after Saul, because I have rejected Saul. Now, just as a little bit of a context to you, I want you to take note of this. Saul is rejected. Samuel is dejected. But David is selected. And that's what's going to happen. But first of all, Saul says to God, how can I go? Or Samuel says to God, how can I go? If Saul finds out, he will kill me. And so God says to Samuel, take a heifer and go there and sacrifice it. And at this time, they could do sacrifices in any place because Jerusalem wasn't the official capital at this stage. So they could do it wherever they lived. And so Samuel takes a heifer to Bethlehem. And when he gets to the gates of Bethlehem, the elders at the gate are pretty worried, pretty concerned. Whoops, the prophet's come here. What have we done wrong? What have we done wrong? And they're probably thinking of an incident that happened a chapter before too with another king and Samuel. Read that later if you want to. But he says, no, I come in peace. And so he goes to Jesse's family and he says, they kill the heifer, sacrifice the heifer. And then the prophet Samuel says to Jesse, God has chosen one of your sons to be the next king. Could we see them, please? So, The first one comes out, Eliud. He's tall and handsome and good looking and broad shoulders. And Samuel says to himself, I think he's the one. But God says to Samuel, no, he is not the one. He is not the one. You've looked on the outside. His appearance looks kingly and looks stately. But he is not the one I've chosen. Man looks at the outside. I look on the inside. So, Eliud, no. Then there was the second one, Adinabad. And God says to Samuel, no, not him as well. The third son of Jesse, Shemaiah. God says to Samuel, no, not that as well. And then there would have been the fourth son, Nathaniel. And God said to Samuel, no, not there either. The fifth son, God said, no, not there. The sixth son, not that one either. The seventh son, well, we don't know his name actually, because 2 Chronicles doesn't say it, where his sons are listed. But we do know that he had 8 sons. And so the prophet Samuel says to Jesse, do you have any other sons? Because God has rejected all of them. And Jesse says, well, yeah, I do have another one, but he's the youngest, and he's just a shepherd boy. You see, Samuel had an idea of what a king should be. It was appearance. Jesse's idea of what a king should be would be age. And he's out at the moment. Interesting, he's not even invited into the presence, is he? He's out in the fields at the moment looking after the sheep. And so Samuel says to Jesse, well, you better go get him because we cannot sit down until he comes. And so they would have gone and fetched him. And along came David, sorry. Yes, I've used him as Daniel before, but this time he's David, that's right. It came along David. Well, and God said to Samuel, he is the one. I want you to anoint him with the oil that I told you to take earlier on. So, I thought we might do that a bit today. I might anoint someone with oil here today. I've got a bit of Briggs and Stratton, SAE 30. So, Cameron, shall we anoint you with oil?
Not that kind of
It's
oil.
clean. I haven't taken it out of the lawnmower yet.
It was different.
Oh, it was different. Oh, okay. So, David does get anointed. David gets anointed 3 times in his life. This is the first. It's a very private thing, just with his family. Later on, when David becomes king of the southern tribes, he is anointed again at Hebron. That's a very public affair. And then a little bit later on, when it's a united kingdom, he is anointed again. So, David has now been chosen as the next king of Israel. Well, I don't know what David felt and how the rest of the family felt. Would have been a bit strange, I guess, Samuel coming along and doing it. But there we go. So, he was anointed. Later on, we know that when he was anointed, the Spirit came upon him. God's Spirit came upon him. But we also read in the Bible that God's Spirit left Saul. That was an Old Testament thing. That does not happen today. All right? In the Old Testament, God's Spirit did come upon certain individuals at times, and it was taken away. It could sometimes be only a temporary thing. So God's Spirit has come upon David. Saul has lost it. In fact, another spirit enters Saul, of an evil spirit. And God allows that to happen, and it torments him. And I think it makes him pretty moody too. All right? And some of his officials said, what we need to do is to find something that'll help you. Perhaps some music. Some music would be good. So when you're down in the dumps, I reckon a bit of music's always quite good. Roger Whittaker. Oh, that's not very good, probably. No, that's not good. No, you wouldn't want Barry Manilow or something. But here we go. I got a bit of Dragon. Here, these are the old New Zealand bands. 1983, April Sun in Cuba, young ones. I reckon that would really perk Saul up, wouldn't it? Something like that. That would make a big, big difference for him. And one of them says, I know somebody, the son of Jesse, lives in Bethlehem. He's great at playing the harp, one. Number two, he's a warrior. And number three, the God is with him. Isn't it interesting? They're working for Saul, and that's number three, isn't it? Isn't it? And so Saul says, go fetch him. So he comes. And when this evil spirit was in Saul, David would play the harp. And that would soothe Saul down, and he would enjoy it. In fact, Saul enjoyed David's company. He made him his armor bearer, played the harp, and that sort of thing. The next part of the story is we do know that there were three of Jesse's sons who were in Saul's army. And they were in the valley of Elah. And so, if we just have a look here, we see a wonderful story that you have all heard before. That is where the battle of David and Goliath happened. The red spot there is probably where the Israelites were camped. The blue, the southwest part of it, was where the Philistines were. David was asked by his father to go and take some grain, some bread, and some cheese to his brothers. Well, the cheese was actually for the generals, but there we go. So he left Bethlehem. Now, the town of Bethlehem would be about where that H is now, Goliath. So he had to walk from there to see his brothers. Just to show you a little bit, that would have been probably where the Israelites were, the north side. That's what the Philistines would had to have climbed up to attack the Israelites. Pretty steep, pretty steep. The Philistine side, the southwest side, they were up there. So, not an easy place. Here, you all know about a little stream that was in through the valley. I have never seen that stream with water in it. It's always been dry. I've seen pictures online of it when there's been a storm. But so David takes these supplies to his brothers. And as he goes here, he sees this big guy coming down from the Philistine side. His name is Goliath. He's come down for 40 days. And each day he's been saying, twice a day, give someone to fight me. I want someone to fight. If I win, you lot become our slaves and our masters. If I lose, we become yours. Quite a good way to do battle, really. It's just a one-on-one, isn't it? All right? But in Saul's army, they were terrified. They didn't know what to do. There was nobody in Saul's army of that sort of size. Now, we probably think that Saul, King Saul himself, was probably the tallest one. He was head and shoulders above everybody else, we read. But he wouldn't go out. So, David comes along, and he's talking to someone. Who's that guy over there? What's he want? He's come here to defy, God and the armies of Israel. Who is he? And so they tell him the story. His three elder brothers, David's three elder brothers, overhear this, and they're not too happy about this. But David says, I will go and fight him. Is that the courage that he's got and the faith that he has got? Isn't that wonderful? And he says, I'll go out there. And Saul says, well, I'll give you my armor. So he says, well, I'll give you a shield at least, you see. Put that there. Probably won't even stand up. And you can take my sword and that sort of thing. But David says, no, too heavy, too heavy. Can't take all that. What I'll do is I'm really, really good at using a sling. As a shepherd, I could protect those sheep. I could put a stone in my sling. He said, I've killed a lion. I have killed a bear when it ran off with one of the sheep, one of the lambs. I can just go out there and I can do it in God's strength. So I thought that I would make a sling. And here we go. So I made this here. Now, where do you buy leather these days? Because I don't know where. I don't know what I'm going to wear at work tomorrow. But there it is. However, he would have got his sling out like this. This is something he had all the time, I guess, with him. He needed it for protection and for protecting his sheep as well. And so David walked down into that creek there. And he picked up 5 small stones. And I just thought, I might give this a go, actually. I've sort of been practicing a bit, you see. So, right, let's go. And I'm going round and round, and let it go. Don't tell the elders, will you? Dear. So, David went down, he picked up this 5 stones, he put them in his pouch, and then he came out, and there was Goliath. Now, we read in this part of the Bible that Goliath was 9 feet tall. All right? Now, don't know how accurate that is. We read other scripts, it's slightly different. But however, he was tall. He was very tall. And so Goliath says to David, you send a boy against me. And Goliath's got all his armor on. Even in the text, we have the weight of all his armor in there. And so David looks at Goliath and says these very important words. You come to me with spear and javelin. I come to you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the one who commands the armies of Israel. And so David there, with that small sling, one of the 5 stones that he has picked up from the brook as he's gone, he walks closer to Goliath. And we all know the story. There's that boy, just a shepherd boy. Up until the last chapter, David is a nobody. Nobody knows about him. Just a boy minding the sheep. In most people's eyes, not very important. Can't you see the courage on his face? He knows that he is on God's side. He has God's strength. And sometimes in life, when we come up against big problems, Goliath of problems, we need to rely on God. And we all know the story where David swung the sling, the stone went up, and that stone embedded itself in Goliath's forehead. Goliath fell down face forward. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. That certainly happened that day. With the Israelites behind, watching, the Philistines ahead, watching as well. Couldn't believe their big man, their big hero, had fallen down dead. And so David goes up, takes the big sword off Goliath, and takes his head off. And there is more to the story. But what I want you to take off today, just remember, please, the battle is always the Lord's. Be strong. Be courageous. Look to Him. Like David, size didn't matter, did it, in the end? All right? So David, after that, of course, many other things happened, not to discuss today. But always remember, the battle belongs to the Lord, and always trust God in everything that you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ian, for that.
I'm not forsaken, never alone. The God of heaven calls me His own. He's not just seated upon the throne. I know He's right here inside my home. I've got a treasure here in my heart, and in my weakness it won't depart. I have a Savior who will abide. He's not just with me, He lives inside. Just go ask Daniel if our God will bring you out, and He will testify. He shuts the lion's mouth. Go ask those Hebrew boys if He'll stick by your side. They will identify the fourth man in the fire. They'll tell you, oh,